Welcome back, everyone. I'm Aeon, and this is Jack the Spacedog. Thanks for coming back for another episode, and we're just going to pick up right where we left off. I've come out of the transformation. I now understand the gravity of what I've agreed to, even though it wasn't exactly made entirely clear to me. I needed something, they needed something, everybody needed something. So I've realized the weight, how big of a problem we're really facing. This original civilization has been around for millions of years. So think if we stayed around, where would we be at in 1,000 years? In just 100 years, we went, in less than 100 years, in 65 years, we went from discovering flight to landing on the moon. Less than 100 years. So think a civilization that stays around 10,000 years, 100,000 years, 1,000,000 years. You're talking science that is so far outside of our conceivability that we could not begin to guess at what that might be like. We can guess at the amount of energy they might use or how they might go about it, but we have no idea what's possible. We're only just unlocking the fundamentals of quantum mechanics and how that even works in the world we can touch. With a civilization that's been around that long and been around since the beginning of this struggle with the sect, the issue is perspective. The world that I come from, we can only see what we can see in the sky, and we can only see of the galaxy what we can travel to or what we've built gate-to-gate transdimensional travel to. So if we haven't actually gotten there to build a gate and then be able to gate there and then colonize there, we haven't seen it. So if you have the galaxy, what we see as an infection in a quadrant, which is still hundreds of thousands of suns and therefore millions of worlds, that seems huge. If you think of the difficulty of traveling from one star to another, even in what is a pretty advanced civilization where we've built these gates, it's still a lot of time. So let's say a quarter of a galaxy is taken over. That's what we see. But what we don't see is we're just the most recent galaxy to have this infestation. As many worlds in our galaxy that are taken over and colonized by them is multiplied into that many galaxies that are gone, that we can't even see, because they warp, they move, and because they go from point to point, these other galaxies are so far away that the time it takes for light to get here, for us to realize that those galaxies no longer emit light, hasn't even caught up to us. We don't even know that these galaxies are gone. We think it's a localized problem. It's an existential problem for existence itself. They're perpetuating entropy of existence at an accelerated rate that's inconceivable. They're eating existence. What they leave behind are black holes, and black holes at the end of the universe, if we think of the universe dying in a heat death, what will be left is black holes spinning off excess radiation. That's all that will be left. They're doing that at an incredible rate. They're taking galaxies and reducing them down to single supermassive black holes for the purposes of energy. That's what they run their technology on. On the other side of that, the other huge part of the problem is this program that I've now gone through and that I'm now permanently changed from. The idea was that two souls would go through at once as a unit. So in my case, it's me and it's Jack. The reason it had to be me and Jack and maybe not some other bigger, more intimidating animal is it has to be somebody you're already bonded with. In the middle of the Atlians transferring their solar system into a safer pocket dimension, they're all outside of their solar system on these arc ships for safety, because it's a huge amount of mass to transfer, and they've never done something other than a sun, and if something goes wrong with the sun's stuck in a pocket dimension. If anything happens, it's not really a problem. When you have a bunch of living organisms and planets you want to preserve just as they are, it's a huge undertaking. They're all out on these arc ships, but at the same time, they have sent out all the candidates who would have gone through the same changes I have to go out and bond with some other creature. They were seeking out other creatures on other planets and spending years, decades bonding. This is also a very long-lived race, so a long time for them versus what I felt like was a long time knowing Jack. It's a different scale. So they were all supposed to come back after the transfer as they made their bonded mate. They were supposed to come back and then go through the trial that I went through. I'm sort of like the staples and duct tape equivalent of what this program was supposed to be. I'm all there is. So I'm what they got, so I'm what they used. I'm what they talked into it. They're what I've got. I would have rather have just gone home, just gone back to my life, but it's what I had. So at the same time, I know that I'll never be the same. It's not clear whether or not I'll even age the same. Will I have to watch everybody I know die? And I can't, or at least not of age or sickness. Can I still be biologically the same? Does this, can I still have sort of the same life besides whatever these responsibilities are going to be? There's no answers to those questions because I wasn't the intended candidate for this in the first place. Think of the people who are supposed to go through this as like highly trained, almost like devout monks or scouts and rangers. It's like the single-minded special forces of a incredibly intellectually and technologically advanced race. I'm not that. I'm just Aeon. They've given me all this ability. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the real problem is I don't even have a concept for any of those things. So most of these people would have grown up with all this technology around them all the time. Getting in their mind how to use it wouldn't really be an issue. It'd just be a matter of training and practice. For me, we can get to the training and practice eventually, but I have to even understand what this means. So the simple version of what has been done to me is bonding a third strand of DNA along with my DNA that works as both a reinforcing interface and a control modification interface. So you think of DNA then split apart as RNA, you split it apart to recode and make more DNA. This interrupts that process and becomes the control sequence for my DNA, what my body does, what it can do, and also creates a link on the smallest biological level between me and this technology. Think of it like somewhere between computing and sensor strips run at the DNA level through my entire body. It's made out of foreign material that also makes me durable. Makes me durable. The basics of what I can do break down to really simple principles. It allows me to manifest and destroy matter. It's done by my own captive sun that's kept in a pocket space, but suns are where all the molecules in this world originate from. It takes a sun and uses it much like a forge to pull out matter it needs into a shape, density, and weight that I want. I can also turn energy to matter, matter back to energy, and then I can influence and manipulate gravity, which means I can do all those things about my own self as well, right? I can create more gravity towards me, away from me, gravity inverted. But the technology that I have, I can split a space from here to another space almost anywhere. It's complicated. I have to be able to think about the space that I want to go to, but in theory, you could go anywhere. It's like having your own dimensional gate as a zipper that you can just open up and walk to another spot. That's how their even massive city is actually much more massive on the inside once you get in it, because it's folded space on the inside versus the outside is more for aesthetics. So same thing with the ship. The ship, while it is very, very big, the truth is its size and its style is mostly aesthetic. It's an arc ship. Each one is made to move whole planets of people. It's like flying a supermassive city, and there's probably even more to it than that. When you think about those fundamental things I can do, those are the fundamental forces of the universe. These are powers much like something would need to create a whole universe. I have a limited amount of energy. I'm working with the energy of a single sun, but that's quite a lot. So now I have the keys. I'm able to use their technology, but now I have to understand how to use it. So I still have months yet to go that I have to spend there to at least get a basic understanding of how to internalize the manipulation of matter, or the manipulation of gravity, or the transformation of energy to matter, matter to energy, to be able to use their technology. In the painting, the ship we call Bedouin, that's the end. That's when I'm trying to access the ship. But even that's light years of progress ahead of where I am when I step out of Fulcrum, because I'm actually accessing systems. I'm starting the ship up. I'm going to initiate the drive on it to get it to start up for the first time. To think that I did all this and then to find out it's crushing enough, the thing that I now know I have to do, or that I'm being relied on to do, but then to know that I still have months yet before I can actually leave, which again is something they neglected to tell me. In the days and weeks after the transformation, it's a mix of a lot of emotions for me. So I was already held for smuggling artifacts off of planets in a way that's frowned upon. Smuggling artifacts from civilizations that are not yet developed and don't even know that there's other civilizations out there. A thing that would be really damaging to a culture. But for me, since I thought, no one ever noticed and I didn't get caught, I felt like it was more like a gray area. But everybody, galactic cultures take it really seriously. I've already spent years in a detention facility for this. So I've done things for longer at this point that I didn't have a choice about than the amount of time it's going to take to train for this. But still, I waffle in between my training as I'm still moving around the city and exploring the planet. I move between teary-eyed wonder at the fact that I can look at the mountain ridge on the other side of the planet and step through to it, and alternately laugh with joy and cry that for all that power, I still just want to go home. I'm still stuck here, and I don't want to have to save everybody or find a way to save everybody. I just want to go home. So you might ask, if I can zip a door between one mountain ridge and another, why can't I just go home? It's complicated. The short answer is because I can see that mountain ridge. I can see it, and when I zip the door open, I know exactly where I am. Much like if you're going to throw a ball, you say throw a ball and hit that bookshelf over there. Great, it's right there, hand-eye coordination. But if you told me that you can throw hard enough to hit Chicago, now throw this ball and hit Chicago, even if you can throw it that far, what are the chances you're going to hit Chicago? It's pretty slim. So it's learning a skill and a scale and a perspective that I just have nowhere to put in my head. The whole reason they were able to travel dimensionally around the universe, like from galaxy to galaxy even, partly they had a pseudo map of how things moved through the universe, because if you get hundreds of thousands of light years away, the movement of a galaxy relative to yours is actually quite a distance. It's a big distance, even though it doesn't look like it on a telescope. The fact that you can perceive it means it moves very far, because it's moving this way relative to something else. You're moving this way relative to something else. Relatively, they could be moving apart at light years a day. You have to keep that stuff mapped, but the actual fine-tuning of place to place was an intuitive neural adaptation by the Atlians over millions of years of technological advancement and their integration into that. They did some modification with themselves, but most of the modification was for them to slot into and the technology to slot with them to be almost indistinguishable. Their technology is part organic, part inorganic, because they needed a seamless meshing. In fact, them as a species at the end, it probably would have been hard to tell where the real separation was. So for me, there's a very clear separation in my mind. Saying, oh, just throw the ball to Chicago, that's not enough to tell me how to do it, and no one's ever had to explain it to someone who didn't already have a very clear grasp of the scale and the dynamic abundance of their technology. That's why I can't just zip a hole home, and even by the time I can start the ship, I still won't be able to do that. It was supposed to take them half a lifetime of training, and they had very long lives. My training is about just making sure that I don't destroy myself. Manipulating these things, that's great and all. I'm pretty durable, but what happens to people around me if it's not well controlled? You're manipulating the energy of a sun. You vaporize everybody around you. I mean, it's great in battle, not great if you're battling on a planet that you want to save. Fine if you don't care and you just want to destroy the whole planet. There's a balance. I can access it, but it's not well controlled. Their control interface that I have to learn is not dissimilar from a martial arts, except the system is not designed for me to really actually have physical contact with the opponent. So the 3 rings that you see featured in a lot of my stuff is representational of a lot of the fundamental workings of their technology. Whenever I transfer over into, like, say, battle mode, I look more like the rest of the material they build everything out of. The 3 rings rotate around me, and the 3 rings are an access point and an interface for me to control the technology. But the commands are so complex, you can't just use language. You can't just use thought. You can't just use intention. It's a combining of all those things and movement. It looks like a 0G martial arts. Me suspended amongst the rings with my staff as a focal point for me, and precise movement, precise thought, focused intention, and the combination of those 3 things lining up just right gives very specific instructions to the interface, and it does what I want, right? Something as simple as I want to throw a rock-like thing at something else. It manifests the material and propels it, but it can do much more than that, including forming complex geometrics that take out some creatures on the battlefield but not others, or just cores the power center out of one of these giant insects but leaves the rest of it intact and holds their little mini black hole in stasis, but obliterates the rest of them. The limit of the power is a limit of your imagination, which is why I'm sort of a good fit. That is one respect in which I'm probably ahead of the curve of the average person, is I can conceive of and I can imagine pretty dynamic things because I see in pictures anyway. Their most talented folks would have been some of their most creative musicians, artists, martial artists, that sort of thing. That's their perfect fit. Strength comes from the protocol and the technology. Ability comes from creativity and lateral thinking, non-linear thinking. In that respect, I'm a good fit for it, and it's probably the only reason I have any hope of being able to at least use this safely in any reasonable amount of time.
Oh, and you forgot the mic. Sorry, forgot the first.
Oh, okay.